the Philippine government imposed one of the world's strongest, strictest lockdowns.
World health officials this morning are reporting the first coronavirus death outside of China.
It's a familiar scene all across the Philippines.
The COVID-19 coronavirus pandemic has spread across the entire human community, with the first 7 months having more than 1 million deaths. This resulted in widespread cancellation of scientific conferences, travel restrictions, social isolation, and other unusual preventive measures.
Many people are out of work, are learning from home, or even in an environment that feels unsafe. We are currently 2 years into the trying times.
The virus has hindered our normal ways such as sharing snacks, sitting close to each other, hugging, and even just talking with close friends in enclosed spaces. Our interaction with each other has suddenly shifted dramatically. But what brought us to this point?
Here with our team is Ms. Jessica SAULOG. She is one of the victims of what we have always known to be the unseen enemy, COVID-19.
Ako si Mrs. Jessica SAULOG. Nag-positive ako sa COVID noong December 8 last year.
COVID-19 is a newly found coronavirus that causes an infectious disease. SARS-CoV-2, the name of the virus, was discovered in early January, and its genetic sequence was later released to the public on January 12. In December 2019, officials in Wuhan, China, revealed the first human cases of COVID-19. Groups of patients with pneumonia of unclear cause were traced from multiple health facilities in Wuhan, Hubei province, China. Clinical symptoms were similar with viral pneumonia, including fever, dizziness, and cough. After sequencing analysis of samples from the respiratory tract, the pathogen was identified as a new coronavirus, causing a severe acute respiratory syndrome due to phylogenetic similarity with SARS-CoV. The majority of the first 27 confirmed hospitalized patients were related to Wuhan Seafood Wholesale Market, a wet market in downtown Wuhan that sells not just seafood, but also live animals including poultry and wildlife. More patients with no history of Wuhan Seafood Wholesale Market exposure were found later. There were several familial clusters of infection documented, as well as infection in healthcare settings. All these cases showed that the new virus might be transmitted from person to person. COVID-19 spread swiftly all over the world because of SARS-CoV-2's high transmission efficiency due to the high volume of international travel. Large clusters of infection have been recorded in an increasing number of countries, including the Philippines. As of June 28, 2021, in the Philippines, a total of 1.4 million people have been affected by COVID, and 24,000 deaths were recorded and 1.3 million people recovered. On March 11, 2020, the World Health Organization officially characterized the global COVID-19 outbreak as a pandemic, and all countries later declared lockdown.
We have therefore made the assessment that COVID-19 can be characterized as a pandemic.
Community quarantine is hereby imposed in the entire of Metro Manila.
Bago ako nagkaroon noon, ang namin, kasi lagi kaming lumuluwas, lagi kaming pupunta ng Divisoria para mamili ng aming paninda. Pero habang pumupunta naman kami doon, kami naman ay naka-face mask at naka-face shield, at lagi ako maya nag-alcohol din. Pero nahawaan pa rin ako ng COVID.
It's important to remember that the coronavirus illness, COVID-19, is caused by a virus rather than bacteria. The virus belongs to the Coronaviridae family of viruses, and coronaviruses are zoonotic. They first develop in animals before being transmitted to humans, and the virus spreads easily among people. A person has to come in close contact with an animal for the virus to be transmitted. Once it develops in people, they are transmitted from person to person through respiratory droplets, a technical term for moist substance that moves through the air when exhaling. The viral substance hangs out in the droplets, which when we breathe into the respiratory tract can lead to infection. The virus infects people of all ages. However, evidence today suggests that two groups of people are at higher risk of getting severe cases. These are the individuals over 60 years old and those with underlying medical conditions such as cardiovascular and respiratory diseases, diabetes, and cancer. When the virus gets in your body and meets the mucous membrane of your nose, mouth, and eyes, it infects cells along your airways by attaching to the ACE2 and other molecules on the cells. The ACE2 serves as a door to get inside the cells and make more copies of itself. The ACE2 molecules help reduce inflammation, and its function weakens when the virus hijacks the cell. The coronavirus can infect the upper and lower part of the respiratory tract. As the infection travels through, the immune system fights back. As a result, inflammation and damage to the air sacs occur, causing them to scar or be filled with fluid. This blocks oxygen from passing to the lungs into the bloodstream. People who have COVID-19 get mild to moderate symptoms. One may have dry cough or sore throat. Some people may experience severe symptoms like pneumonia.
Miss Jessica's condition was COVID-19 pneumonia.
So what were your most prominent symptoms?
Noong una kasi, nakafeel ako ng parang dry sa throat ko. Tapos, medyo inubo ako. Tapos, mga ilang araw, na nilagnat din ako. Nagkaroon ako ng fever. Meron akong kasama rin itong doctor na sister-in-law ko. Sabi niya, 1 week ako na-take ng antibiotic. Binigyan niya ako ng antibiotic. Pero after noon, ganun pa rin, ako, may fever ako. Nagkakaroon pa rin ako ng fever. So, nag-decide kami na magpa-lab, x-ray, at saka nagpa-antigen kami.
Fever, fatigue, and dry cough are the most commonly reported symptoms. Other well-described symptoms are anorexia, malaise, sore throat, headache, abnormalities of taste and smell, and diarrhea. 80.9% of these COVID cases are mild, while 50% of it being asymptomatic cases. 14.8% are severe, while 4.7% are critical. Mild cases include patients with or without mild pneumonia. Severe cases include patients who experience shortness of breath, blue lips or face, persistent pressure in the chest, confusion, and excessive drowsiness. Critical cases include patients who suffer respiratory failure, septic shock, and or multiple organ dysfunction failure. Upon these symptoms showing in the case of Miss Jessica, she later then suspected herself of catching the virus.
Dok, bakit rin ang kaso?
Kasi ang sakit pwedeng galing sa germs. Kahit di natin kita, germs are on objects and surfaces na pwedeng mapasa. Kaya mag-LEYSON disinfectant spray every day. It kills up to 100 illness-causing germs, including the COVID-19 virus. Laging i-disinfect ang objects and surfaces na shared at frequently touched. Pati ang mga bagay na inuuwi sa bahay mula sa labas. Di pwedeng malinis lang. Dapat LEYSON linis. LEYSON, disinfect to protect.
Sa nagdaang taon ng lockdown, tuloy lang ang galaw. Dahil sa bawat hataw natin sa bahay, tuloy lang ang galaw ng mga bayani sa kalsada. Saludo ang Grab at Rexona sa ating Hero Movers. Kaya simula Mayo 1, kami naman ang taya. So you look fresh with fresh new rewards. Tuloy lang ang galaw araw-araw. Maraming salamat Grab drivers at Hero Movers.
What quarantine protocols did you and your family take inside the household as soon as the symptoms appeared?
Nag-ano kami ng husband ko, nung lumipat muna kami, nag-ano kami sa isang hotel, quarantine kami doon. Tapos yung ibang mga naiwan dito, na kanya-kanya silang kwarto, may kanya-kanya naman silang kwarto, kaya lang, na disinfect na sila ng mga kwarto nila.
Symptoms are divided into 3 categories. Category A symptoms show low-grade fever, mild sore throat, cough, rhinitis, like sneezing or stuffy nose, and diarrhea. In this category, patients are assessed every 28 to 48 hours telephonically by a doctor and has to undergo strict home isolation. Going to designated COVID-19 centers is not necessary, but they are advised to take plenty of warm water, nourishing oral fluids, balanced diet, adequate sleep, and saline gargle for sore throat. Category B patients display high-grade fever, severe sore throat, and cough. The patient is advised to come to treatment centers for post-assessment and probable admission. Category C symptoms that display breathlessness, chest pain, drowsiness, fall in blood pressure, cyanosis, high persistent fever with respiratory distress, and worsening of underlying chronic condition are required to be admitted and tested. A typical COVID-19 course that require hospitalization will have an incubation period ranging from 2 to 14 days with a median length of 4 to 5. The initial symptoms to develop are commonly fever and cough, which can last throughout the duration of the illness. But some fever cease before recovery. 20% eventually develops dyspnea after a week. About 25% of patients will have ARDS plus multi-organ failure. Either recovery or death occurs between 2 and 3 weeks after initial symptoms arise.
But it is important to know that regardless of the case, people exposed to the virus and who had close contact with confirmed cases should get tested with or without the symptoms. In COVID-19, there are no physical exam findings that are specific enough to be diagnostically relevant. Common lab abnormalities include lymphopenia, a decrease in lymphocyte count, an elevated lactate dehydrogenase, or LDH, and an elevated C-reactive protein.
How were you tested and what was your diagnosis?
Nung nagpunta nga kami sa isang hospital sa St. Masanod, kasi mahirap magpa-check up sa iba. Meron ako kasing daughter-in-law ko, doon siya nag-work as a doctor. Pina-check up, pinalab niya ako. Nakita sa x-ray ko na may pneumonia ako, na mayroong tubig yung lungs ko, at saka in-antigen ako, nag-positive ako.
Diagnosis is based upon the symptoms, current disease prevalence in the community, and an RT-PCR test on nasopharyngeal swabs.
Naipaliwanag na namin dati, di ba, kung ano ang difference ng RT-PCR at saka ng antigen test. Ang RT-PCR, siya yung gold standard natin kasi kahit na mga pre-symptomatic pa lang, yung mga magsho-show pa lang ng symptoms, nakaka-capture na ng RT-PCR as against with antigen test. Ang antigen test is useful for those with symptoms, no? Sinasabi naman yan sa literature na from day 1 to day 5 of your symptoms, siya yung pinaka-accurate talaga siya kasi nandun yung mataas yung viral load ng isang pasyente.
Dr. Mario Panaligan of the Philippine College of Physicians explains there are 3 types of tests that are usually conducted: the real-time polymerase chain reaction or PCR test, a viral antigen test, and the rapid antibody test.
Polymerase chain reaction testing is considered the gold standard in SARS-CoV-2 detection. This test detects RNA or genetic material that is specific to the virus and can detect the virus within days of infection, even those who have no symptoms. This can detect even very small amounts of viral genetic material in a sample by duplicating it many times through amplification. The test can be done in a clinic, hospital, or even in your car. Turnaround time is longer, generally in the 2 to 3 day range, but results can be in as little as 24 hours. When demand is high, results can take a week or longer. First, a test sample is swabbed from the back of the nose and processed to isolate genetic material. Next, small pieces of specifically engineered genetic material called primers are introduced and bind to the isolated viral genetic material, initiating the amplification. Lastly, fluorescent markers bound to the copies are released and can be detected upon amplification. The result is positive when there is a viral genetic material in the sample and amplification occurs. This releases enough fluorescent detectable markers. A result is negative if there is no viral genetic material, as amplification will not occur, thus producing no detectable fluorescent markers.
Apart from RT-PCR testing, rapid antigen test is also an option. Here, a mucus sample is also swabbed from the nose or throat. The sample is mixed with a lysis buffer and placed on the card containing reagents. Eventually, viral antigens are detected based on the amount of fluorescence. The accuracy is 100% for positive, while 80% for negative. Another testing available is the serology test. A blood sample is collected and loaded into an antibody test device. This is best taken many days or even weeks after someone has caught the infection. There are tests for IgM, IgG, or both. IgM levels rise as soon as a person is infected, while IgG rises on the 7th to 14th day onward as soon as IgM depletes. These tests may produce false positives or false negative results if taken at a wrong time, which is why antibody tests are not really encouraged.
A year ago, many of the COVID-19 patients with worsening symptoms were put on ventilators. Currently, this can be avoided with a quick intervention. Doctors now treat patients with a combination of drugs including antiviral drugs like remdesivir, blood thinners to prevent clots that are caused by the disease, and common steroids such as corticosteroid dexamethasone that prevents inflammation of the lungs. This can help reduce the length of time on the ventilator and save those with severe and critical illness. Mild cases may be treated with over-the-counter medicines. For fever greater than 39 degrees Celsius, paracetamol 500-gram tablets should be taken for every 4 hours or 3 to 4 times a day. For children, paracetamol syrup 125 mg or 250 mg per 5 ml. For coughs, carbocysteine capsule 500 mg 3 times a day or syrup for children. Natural remedies can be taken for colds. Are you now vaccinated?
Na-vaccine ako noong last month, June 27, ng SAULOG.
The World Health Organization highly encourages everyone to be vaccinated as soon as possible. COVID-19 vaccines are effective at keeping people from getting COVID-19, especially severe illness and death. There are several examples of vaccines that we can opt to take. First are traditional vaccines known to be proven and tested, which uses inactivated virus such as Sinopharm, Sinovac, and Bharat. Next are nucleic acid-based vaccines, which extract RNA, DNA to create a viral protein that will give immunity. These are Moderna, Pfizer, Arcturus, and Inovio. 8 vaccines are approved for the use in the Philippines, namely Moderna, Pfizer, Sputnik V, Janssen or known as Johnson & Johnson, AstraZeneca, Covaxin, Sinopharm, and Sinovac.
Our team highly encourages everyone to get waitlisted for the vaccines as early as now.
Mahigit 10 milyong doses na ng COVID vaccine ang naiturok sa bansa. Ayon sa DOH, mahigit 7 milyon dyan ang naka-first dose, habang nasa 2 milyon naman ang fully vaccinated. Nitong Lunes, ika-10 milyong dose ang natanggap ng 74 anyos na taga Valenzuela na si Lola Nieves Katakutan. Paglilino ng ahensya, sa Hulyo pa inaasahan ng gobyernong maabot ang target na 10 milyong Pilipinong bakunado. Ayon kay Testing Czar Vince Dizon, bumibilis naman daw ang bakunahan. Ang National Task Force Against COVID, umaasa namang magiging steady ang supply ng bakuna para maabot ang target na herd immunity ngayong taon.
Vaccine nationalism hurts us all and is self-defeating. But on the flip side, vaccinating equitably saves lives, stabilizes health systems, and would lead to a truly global economic recovery that stimulates job creation. Importantly, it would also help us limit the virus opportunity to mutate.